Hi students, welcome to this week's session. So last week we discussed about basics of Maya's tools, then navigation tools, then shortcut keys, then transformation tools, move, rotate, scale, and we discussed about grid and pivot point for a 3D object, and we discussed about outliner, then channel box, and also about duplicating objects and grouping. So hope you guys have worked and get practiced with all those videos. So let's continue to this week's video. So the first thing we do here is let's discuss about creating primitive shapes. So the first thing I do here is look at the shells. We have shells called curves, polymodeling, sculpting, raking, animation, and many such. Now the first thing I do is I click on the polymodeling shelf. Then I would like to create polygon modeling. We call these objects as basic primitive shapes such as sphere, cube, cylinder, cone, torus, and plane. So these are all basic primitive shapes. Ensure you are in polymodeling shelf. Then please click on a sphere. The moment when you click the sphere, it appears at the center of your grid, which we have discussed already in our previous sessions. Now you could notice in the outliner it is polysphere 1 and this is polysphere 1 here in the channel box. So the first thing now we do is let's press F. Okay, it's got fit to the screen, and I press my left Alt plus left mouse button to toggle panning, rotating. So then Alt middle click for panning and right click for zoom in, zoom out. Great. So hope you remember F key and all other things. Now the next one is I would like to create a cube now. Let's click on the cube. Now you could notice the cube has been created, which I could see in my outliner and also in the channel box. But in the viewport you couldn't see it because both the objects are created at the center of the grid. When you press 4, which is a wireframe mode, you could see the object resides inside. When you press 5, it is a shaded mode. Now you can't see the objects what are inside. So press 4 for wireframe and 5 for shaded. So when I press 4, I can select the model object here. I can press W and I can move it. Or I pressed Z now. See? I pressed Z now, so it will come back to the initial state. Z is undo. Or you can select the cube here and you can move. So both are same. Okay. But I don't want this. I'm not comfort in making all my objects appear at the center of my grid. Great. Now let's select both the objects by using your left mouse and delete them. Now I prefer the objects to appear on my own preferred area. So what I do here is let's go to your create menu. There you can see polygon primitives. Ensure you're in polygon. And you could notice there is a double dotted lines, which is when you click on it, you could able to tear off the menu. Great. Now there is sphere and all the other primitive shapes. Now come down, you could see interactive creation. Please click that. Now it is on. Now you click on the object. Great. Now look here. Maya tells you to drag on the grid. Of course, you could drag on the grid. Sphere could be done just in one thing because all it has is radius. Whereas when you take a cube, okay, now I have to draw the base on the grid. First I left click my mouse, drag, grid, leave your mouse. Now again click and pull. Okay, here are my objects. Similarly, you can create objects wherever you want. The cone. So these are all in wireframe mode like a skeleton because it is in 4. Press 5 for shaded mode. The shortcut keys are 4 and 5, or you can toggle it here. 4 and 5. Great. And also there is another mode. You can see the shaded mode with wireframe. It's great. So this is 4, this is 5. Yeah. And this one you can access by using your by clicking on this icon. Great. Okay, now let's do this. Let me select all three objects now again. I'm going to delete them. Great. Now what is next? The next thing is, let's see this. There's a sphere here. And I would like to change the settings of the sphere. Of course, you could do it. Sphere. I go to the option box. Okay, it tells me the settings for the sphere. So initially, when you click on the sphere, let me disable this. So I click on the sphere. Okay, it's appeared on my grid. Now you can see there, this is my sphere, and look at this one. Now these are all the settings of the sphere. I'm sorry, let me close this and press this. Great. Yeah, these are the settings of my sphere. We have radius of 1 and axis division is 20. This is 20, and height is also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12 up to 20. So this is what axis and height is about. So if you reduce this, you could see the shape of the sphere will change. Now it is soft, right? It will change. And this is we call these as polygon. This is 1 polygon, 2 polygon, 3 polygon, 4 polygon, 5, 6. That's how we count. That's how we say this. So let me go to my display and heads up display. I have a poly count. Just enable it. Okay, now your Maya says about it. Now Maya says that I have 400 faces. Faces is what polygon. So there are 400 faces here. This will show you only when you select. See, if you don't select, it won't show you. This shows the entire number of polygon in your scene. Okay, so in my scene now I have only one object, so when I select it, it shows 400 polygon. Great, which is 400 faces. Okay, this is because 20 into 20, you got 400 faces, or 400 polygon, or 400 poly count, or 400 mesh, M-E-S-H. Okay, good. Now let me change this. Let me select this sphere, delete. Now this is the polygon sphere options. Still I'm in polygon sphere options. I'm going to reduce this from 20 to 10, and here also 20 to 10. The radius is 1. If you reduce the radius, it will become a hemisphere. Let's hit create. Yeah. Press W and move it. Now press the sphere again. Okay. Press the sphere again. Okay. So whatever settings you created, those will be saved. So when you create consecutive spheres, you will get the same settings. And if you feel like you don't want that to happen, then please go to your sphere option box, and always there will be edit menu. There will be a reset settings. Do not hit save settings. If you hit it, that's it. Then the settings will be saved. So reset settings. So this is a good option in Maya, so you can customize even each and every tool you use in Maya. Now let me select them, delete and press sphere to check. Yep, it's clear now. Similarly, you can do with cube. You have a cube options. What's the height and depth of the cube you want? This is how a real cube would be. Okay, select and delete. I go to my cube option box. You can increase the width and height depth. Now look at that. So that you could do there. Yeah. So this is how you can customize each and every object of basic primitive shapes in polygon modeling. I'll see you in the next lesson. So students, in this lesson we discussed about setting a shelf. Let's see how to do and why to do that. The first one I do is, whenever I create a sphere or something, now look at the sphere here. Yeah, the transformation values are 0. Now what I do is, I select the model and I move it there. And I move it, or I rotate it, or I press R, then I scale it. You could do anything here. So I hope you remember W, E, R. I can do anything. Now look at the settings there. I press W and F. Great. Now look at the settings. It says X, Y, Z values are changed. Yeah, it happens all the time. Let me delete this and create a cube. Look at the settings. We have changed something. Let me go to my create poly primitives, the cubes option box, edit, reset settings, create that. Hope you guys know what I did. So let me create this one. Okay, I just scaled one object. I pressed F. Great. Now all I would like to do is I'd like to do Shift D. We have already done this. So let me do Shift D again. Now look at this one. So there are some stat cases here. So what I would prefer is when you select this object, look at that, the transformation value is changed. So all the objects values are changed. But I don't want it like this. I want all this object or each and every object here to have 0 as the transformation values. Look at that. But except this, everyone has different values here. So, but the reason is why we want to do that is because when you take these 3D models into a game, then you have to initialize as if these objects are in 0th position, unless the object will be moved in a different position, because look at the value here. So every object will be moved in different position. So what I do is I select the object, I go to my modify, I have freeze transformation. Once I hit freeze, you can see the transformation values will become frozen. Yup, you see that? Great. Now again the second one, modify and freeze. Okay. Now again the third one, and oh, it's boring. Select the model every time, go to modify and click the freeze. But Maya has a shortcut key for that. When you press G on the keyboard, it will tell you whatever tool you used last time will be repeated. Now I select this model, and what was the last option I used, which is G. Press G, okay, freeze. So G, or select both two objects together, press G. This is already here, but anyway, look at the scale values, press G, yeah. Now all these objects look like this is the initial state of my object now. So from here I can start my animation, or from here you can start your whatever. So before you start the animation, you should initialize the object's position. So that's why we do this. So this is called modify freeze transformation. Great. Now I would like to select one object. I pressed F. Now I press D and I hold my D key, then I move this. By holding the D key, I'm moving the pivot point. Hope you guys remember, we discussed about it. Okay, it's moving. Now, if you want to move the pivot point to this corner, you can hold D and hold V key and move it. You could see that it will snap only to vertex. Now I am holding it to the vertex. Look at that. Yeah, so D and V. Okay, now look at that. I hold the D and V key. Now it's there. So now you could see that I select the object and I change the pivot point of this object. Okay, for some reason, maybe I would like to do like this. Some reason like that. Then again, I was doing like this. So I had my own reasons for doing this. Anyway, select this all and press delete. Yeah, then delete them too. Okay, so let me press this on so it will be much easier. Now you can see the structure of the objects also. Now you can see there, yeah, my objects are better. So now set each model, you could see the pivot point is at the corner. Now after this modeling is done, I always want my object's pivot point at the center. So now go to modify, you have center pivot. Just click that. Yes, it's center now. Now select this one, G, 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 and G. Now all the objects have center point, which we call it as a center pivot. Anyway, now do you guys remember what have we done? We have just duplicated the staircases by using Shift D. Then we discussed about freeze transformation. Then we discussed about center pivot. So you could see there, all this all history. When you press Z, you could always go back. Look at that, you see that? Yeah, you always go back. Yeah, this is that. When you press Shift Z, you can always come front. Yeah, so this is what history. You can go back by undoing Z, or you can come to the front or move forward by Shift Z. Okay, undo or redo. You can find it in edit menu. You have undo and redo. Great. So these options are there because Maya has a history. We call this a history. Once the history is on, then it could able to record everything here. So when you place your cursor here, you could see here what is the icon is showing. I put my cursor there. Now you can see in the bottom left it says construction history is on or off. Great. So anyway, now I select this object and look at that. Yeah. Now look at this one here. This object says there is a history, like transform geometry. You remember what happened to this object? Let me select this all objects and delete them. Great. Now select only this object. This is there are two histories here. Because first we created a cube, then I used some transformation tools and I scaled them down like this. You remember that? These are the history. So this object has two history. One is the cube, then another one is I transformed it into a geometry. So each object have its own history. Let me make it clear. I create a new scene again. Okay, now we look about the history. Let's create a cube. So now we have a cube. I press F, I press R, I got a cube here. I just scale it to this extent. Fine, then I use my shift right. Don't worry about these things. I'll teach all these things in the future classes. I'm just showing you an example now how to do things. Great. Then maybe we can put another one here. Then maybe we could select this too. Do the shift right click. I'm just scaling them down. Then again another one. I press G. Yes, it's good. Then maybe I select this faces. Don't worry about these things. I'll teach you how to do this in the further classes. So yeah. So let's think this as a house, just a base house here. Of course, if you need some things, you can put it later. So now look at this, the 3D object. Now here we could notice that there is a history. This is the history of this model. So when you press Z, the object will go back how it was before. Z. You see that? When you press Shift Z, it will come to the front how it was after that. So this is the history of that object. So an object should always hold its history. Look at that. So this is always better to hold the history. So by any point of time, if you want to make any changes in the model, you can go here and you can change that. That's a good option. But once you're done modeling your object, once everything is done, now there is no need to go back. Then you can select the object and go to your edit. You have go to your edit. Go to edit, delete by type. Then we have history. Delete by type history. The shortcut key is Alt Shift D. Once you click that, notice here all the histories will be gone. But once the history is gone, you can't go back. There is no undo. And this history will be deleted only for this object, not for the other objects in the scene. So select the object, go to your edit, delete by type, history, which is Alt Shift D. Look here, it will be gone once I click that. So delete by type history. Yeah, that's it. Now select the object and press Z. Okay, yeah, look at that. So that's what happens. So your history will be gone. And after this, when I save the file, that's it. You can't get the history back. So I'm going to file. I'm sorry, I can set the scene. Let me save the scene as I think we already set this project in this location here in my China 2020. We have a modeling class. Okay, here is my project. Let me go to my Maya here, file, set project, and here I have to go to file, select project. Yeah, here is the file folder, modeling class. I set. That's it. Now let me click the save button. Okay, now it's loaded there. I think it has to set, but it's not there. File. I think there is some problem here in Maya. Might be. They should fix this. This is what I mentioned. It's not stable these days. So we go to project window again. I think it's already set. So we don't need to create it again and again. So let me go to file again. Set project. Yeah, modeling class. Okay, let's click the save button. Yeah, it's there. I go to scenes. I save it as my class 3. Great. So now I click the open. I double click the class 3 and open it. Now I save the file. I reopen the file again. Now select this and press Z. Nothing will happen. There are no more commands to run. And select the object and go down. You can't get any of the history. That's what happened when you delete it. So this is what all about history. So guys, here we are. Now let's discuss about shelf. I already have my own shelves here. I have my own tools, but anyway, let's create our own shelf and do the tools. So what is shelf? Shelf is a place where you can keep all your objects or all your preferred things or the icons which you use often. So let's click on this double line, and there you can find my shelf, and there are many other shelves there. So whichever shelf you want, you can enable that, or you can just click that. Great. Now next to that you have a gear symbol. Just click that. You have a new shelf. Now this shelf, I name it as my modeling mod. There is Maya won't accept spaces, so whenever you put space, Maya will fill that space with the underscore. So it's basically created in C++. So that's what. So instead of that, I put myself underscore mod underscore tools. Let me click OK. The moment I click that, now you could see, ta-da, a new shelf in my Maya window. Great. Now what's next? I holding my shift key on the keyboard. Then I go to my modify freeze transformation. Okay, nothing happened. I'm sorry. Hold Control plus Shift, go to Modify, Freeze Transformation. Yeah, it appeared now. Again, hold Control plus Shift, go to Modify. Where is that? Where is that? Uh-oh, there's something happened with me. Center pivot. Yeah. Now again, Control Shift, Edit, Delete by Type, History. So these three are most important things that I use mostly. So for example, whenever I create, like I said, when I create a 3D model, so the first thing I do is I just select this model here. Look at that. I'll select my model here. So yeah. So what I do is I just select this object, then just scroll it a little bit, then I press G again, just move it a bit, again I press G, I just move it, then 3, so then G, then move it, G, then rotate that. So I'm just modeling. Don't worry about these things that we will discuss in the further coming classes about how to do all these models. So I'm just showing you some what do you call that? The mighty Maya's effect. Okay, and this to the end. So here there is a building where you could able to just create some shapes here and there. This is just a rough model. It's not a perfect one because it's just to fill the gaps. I'm using this one. So look at that. Yeah. So if you need some shapes or anything like that, maybe you could use that. So I just great, then I just pull them all a little outside. Yep. Okay, so press F. Great. Now this is my object, and due to some reasons I would like to position this cursor on the top of the edge. Anyway, you know how to do that by pressing D and do it, so it's fine. So what I can do is I can press D, I can make this object, and I press D and V, I put it down and put my object here. Press D, I position my cursor. Then I could just roll it down a little bit. Then I just duplicate it. I can roll it down a little bit. Then I just take some cube, yeah, here and there, and I just make it some small shapes and structure. Some tall buildings here and there. So it's like I select them all. I Control D. Okay, great. Again, I select them all, I Control D them. So now we have city. Now you could see there are buildings here and there. So we could delete few objects. So there are a few objects. Okay. So this is how we created models and objects here. Now you could see there are many objects in scene. So all I can do is now everything is done. So this is the final object. So I could select all these objects together, and my modeling is done. Look at that. All the objects have history. It's too much history, and all the objects have things there. So you have to select all these objects and freeze the transformation. That's it. Then center the pivot. Okay. Then delete the history. Done. Now you can save the file, because if each object have a history, it will increase the file size. So creating a shelf would really make your work much easier and comfort. Hope you understand. Okay guys, the last class we discussed about the modeling tools shelf, and we created our own shelf. Now this is my own interface now. So whatever I do, I could use that. So is there any way that we can add other tools also in the shelf? It's easy, just go to Control Shift. You can always click any of that option, it will appear here. So that's an easy way. You can go to any menu, and it will be converted into an icon here in your shelf. And you can rename the shelf also, like modeling tools. You can rename also by going here. Click that, and you can just go to your shelf editor. You can select, and you can rename the shelf. If you want to delete the shelf, you can just delete the shelf also.